Also, of course, we talk about cricket. There's a lot on at the moment. Of course, the T20 World Cup is on. It is everywhere. Our next guest.
Unsledgeable.
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 Unsledgeable. But when you play over 450 games, mate, you've probably got most of it. You heard most of it before. We're talking about Greg Quinn. He joins us. Quinny, thanks for your time, mate.
No worries, Phil.
Hey, mate. Unsledgeable.
Yeah, well, he is.
Unsledgeable, mate. Was he unsledgeable?
No, because he was too good for us, Barry. He was far too good, so he just let him alone and eventually got it.
Yeah. Hey, mate, I've got to ask you this because I looked up all the things you've done, and some of it, and we'll gloss over some of them because there's too much to talk about in a short space of time, but 199 A-grade games. I'm just curious why you didn't get to 200.
Well, I was lucky enough, it was the last game of the year, grand final, so it was just one of those things that... so I was 38 and still playing A-grade cricket, and time came and I'd clogged the system up for long enough, and it's a number that you'll never forget. It's something that I'll never forget, and I just thought it was time, and we all go through that. It just hits you all of a sudden, and that was it. And I didn't really know how many games I'd played until someone come up and said to me exactly what you just said to me, that it was 199, and it was just time to go. And I continued on playing B grade and C grade and D grade for East Torrens, which I loved, and I loved the club, and it was just one of those things that I'd had enough, and it's time. It didn't stop me though.
I like the way he says it's time when he's just announced his retirement at 67. So at 38 he thought it was time. It took you a long time to work out. Once you say you're out, mate.
Dumb wicket keepers, mate. That's what they say. So.
When I said earlier on that Greg was unsledgeable.
Yep.
There were three players in the comp when I played that were unsledgeable. He was one. Bob Zadow was another one, and a fella called Ian Edgley from West Torrens. And do you know why, mate? Because whatever you said to them, all they had on their face was a grin. There was no comeback. There was no... They wouldn't get involved. And they were annoying. And I'm going to ask Quinny that. Why is it the wicket keepers are pains in the backside? Why is it the wicket keepers are good sledges, yappers? What is it about keepers?
People say that's because we can't do anything else other than catch the ball. But what people don't realise is when we have to catch the ball, we have to do a lot of things like down the leg side, you have to dive, and rubbish throws from the outfield, which of course you never did, you immaculate throw, Baz, and it's just one of those things. So you take.
Sorry, was that sarcasm or that wasn't a sledge? Yeah, just that you kept a straight face when you said it, mate.
Moved out of first slip. I never moved out of first slip. But it's when you take the balls from bad throws and things like that. So you have to get back at someone, and you can't get back at the bloke 75 metres away for throwing a rubbish throw to you. So the next best option is the one that's closest to you, which happened to be the batsman. So it's all well and good. So you take it out on the batsman. So wicket keepers are prone to that. I encourage them when I coach them now to express themselves, not poorly or anything, but and it helped me stay into my game. It helped me be a part of
Good point.
What I wanted to do, and I wanted to perform, and I wanted to be as best I could. So that helped me a little bit. Yeah.
Greg, keepers do a lot of work. Keepers are the hardest workers on the ground. With today's cricket, what annoys me, and I would not allow this to happen if I was still coaching a team, a guy will hit a full-blooded drive to mid-off, which is right next to the bowler.
Yeah.
And he will hurl it back at the keeper at 400 miles an hour. They throw back to the keeper now all the time. I look at it and I think the keeper's got the toughest job in the world. Why are you tiring him out? Why are you working him so hard? Because it's virtually every ball.
Correct.
These guys are throwing it from everywhere.
Yep.
Why not the mid-off, keep the ball, give it to the bowler, overrate is quicker,
Yep.
whatever, instead of throwing it back to the keeper?
Well, you've obviously never been a fielding coach, Barry, and that was part of what I did at the Redbacks for 4.5 years. It's all a part of keeping your arm ready for that time that the run out comes.
Yeah.
So if you're at mid off or mid on, not all the time you have to throw at the bowler's end. Sometimes you have to throw the length of the pitch plus the 10 metres. So you're probably throwing 30 metres. So as a fielding coach, that's what you wanted them to be. You wanted to be prepared all day. So you warm up and then they go cold. So if you get an opportunity to throw during a game, that's what you do. You throw to the wicket keeper. Wicket keeper's job is to run up and to take the ball. So he has to be the fittest person in the team.
Absolutely.
And by preparing and keeping your arm prepared and warm.
Yeah.
That was the theory sort of behind it, and it has evolved and it has got bigger, and everyone does it these days, and it's just a part of what happens. And a lot of people, I have a lot of discussions about that.
Is that right?
A
Yeah.
lot, and it's
I
just
would think you would.
It's just a part of it's the wicketkeeper's job. He has to demand the ball. It's a part of Americanism, finishing the play.
Yeah.
So when the ball gets hit, you throw, and it finishes that play. So then when the wicketkeeper gets rid of the ball, his time is now. That the rest, by the time it goes to second slip, third slip, gully, cover, all the way back to the bowler, then it's the wicketkeeper's time to relax.
Yeah.
So that's what
I
it's
just
about.
thought it was a time. I just thought it was an issue with time.
But when you think about it, the bowler's got a long way to walk back. Usually, if it's a spin bowler, sometimes it doesn't always. But we used to encourage, especially when the fast bowlers were bowling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting perspective from a keeper's point of view,
Yep.
because if it was me, I'd be going, hey, whoa, no, don't throw it to me, mate. I've got enough to do behind here without worrying about you throwing it over my
It's a
head.
massive part of the game these days, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm, living dark ages.
We've been there, Barry. We've all been there.
You touched on it before. You got out at 38, out of playing at the top level, and then continued to play. You
Yes.
took an 8-year hiatus and then came back and coached and played.
Yes.
And we all play to be the best we can. And then at just over 60, you represent Australia for the first time, mate. You get the blazer. You're going to play England in a Test series representing Australia. That moment for you, because you had an amazing career. You've played a lot of games, and then suddenly the Australian blazer comes. What did that mean to you?
Well, it meant a lot to me, Phil, because of the fact that I'd strive to be a state player, and I wasn't good enough to be a state player. So I continued on with my cricket, and then someone said to me, "Oh, you can play over 60s cricket," and I thought, I was playing for Para Hills at the time. Yep. You can play for Australia, and sort of the penny dropped a bit, and I was sort of always reasonably fit, and I thought maybe I can have a crack at this. And when I was announced to tour England with an over 60s Australian team, it's probably close to the pinnacle of what I was striving to do as a younger person. And for me to get my baggy green, or my over 60s baggy green, which isn't the same as the Test team, it's a different emblem, but it's an over 60s baggy green and it's an over 60s Australian blazer. It was something that I busted my boiler to do, and then when it happened, I was thrilled. And my first tour of England, we actually won the Grey Ashes from England. We took it 2-1, but our Test matches are 50 over games, so they're one-day international rules. But it was a fantastic thrill, and we hadn't beaten England in a series ever before. And we beat them in England to bring the Grey Ashes back home. It was a big thrill for me, Phil.
Yeah, it would be.
It was
So we got better old blokes than you have. Basically, that's it. Isn't it, you know? Our old blokes are better than your old blokes.
Correct. That's what the talk was after the game, Barry. Don't worry about that. Yeah. And the beauty of it is, you know, as we get older, you don't drink so much beer anymore. It's always red wine. So those conversations come around quicker.
Yeah, good point.
The stories are better.
Yeah.
Great point.
Hey, mate, growing up, we all have idols. For you, as a wicket keeper, who was the player for you?
There's going to be there's a couple, but there's one that stood out for me as a young man was Saeed Kamani, who kept for India.
Yep.
Terrific keeper,
And of course, Ian Healy was fantastic too. When he kept to Shane Warne, and I admired his keeping, and I still coached the Ian Healy way. Saeed Kamani took my notice when he played here in Adelaide, and they had I think there was an opening bowler, and then they had the four spinners: Chandrasekhar, Prasanna, Beatty, Venkat. So there were four spinners in the Indian Test team playing at Adelaide Oval, one medium pacer. He'd bowl 2 overs and then over to the spinners.
None for 44.
And Kamani was that sort of wicket keeper that, and I watched him really closely. I actually went to the ground and watched him side on and got a feel for what he did. I loved his, in those days, I loved his red gloves, which were unheard of. You know, I was probably 23 or 24, and, you know, I just had to have a pair of those red gloves no matter what, you know, because that would make me like Saeed. But I just watched him keep to the spinners, and as it turned out, my career was always involved that I always kept to really good spinners in East Torrens teams, you know. So he was one that stood out to me simply because of the fact that he was such a great keeper to spinners. And
I mean, just quickly, because we're going to have to do a part 2. I know that's going to happen to us now, but you talked about Ian Healy with the spinners.
Yeah.
My era was kind of like the Rod Marsh with the Thompson and the Lilly. To the untrained eye, which one is harder to wicket keep to, the spinner or the super quick?
Well, the spinner, I think the spinner is, because the work is done so closely to not only just the wickets but also to the batter and the ball. If you've got a really good wrist spinner, like the best we've ever seen, we'll never see another one, Shane Warne.
Yeah.
And I know Rod personally, and he's he was a friend of mine. And but what he did standing back to Thompson and Lilly and the walk and those blokes was outstanding. The catches and all that. But Healy to Warne was just amazing as far as a wicket keeper. Simply just a wicket keeper. And I know it might mean something to you, but the spread that he had with his hands. Yeah. I recall him wicket keeping with yellow palms on a pair of Kookaburra gloves, and all I could see as a wicket keeper watching the best, looking down at the TV, was this huge yellow area for the ball to go in, and being there all the time when Warne bowled. Yeah. Healy was just amazing when he kept to Shane Warne. Amazing.
Hey, mate, we're going to go to a break and we're going to get a part 2 out of it, because we want to come back and a bit more chat about your career and your dad, Bob, of course, who is a legend at the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Stay with us, still plenty to come.